Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy, and Connor Gray will join me shortly. It has been a busy week of sports all over the U.S. and even around the world now with the Olympics underway. We might talk about that later in the show, just a little preview about that, including the teams that play just a few minutes away from our studio. Not playing here tonight. We'll get to that in a moment. We're going to talk about our hometown team that we've talked about the past few episodes to start our shows, the Northwestern Rangers. The Rangers have continued to play great basketball over the past few weeks as the Rangers continue to try to cement themselves at the top of the GAC. Tonight, I'll be discussing how they've done it, as well as what lies ahead for them. On Thursday night, the Rangers began their road trip to Arkadelphia, Arkansas to play the Tigers of Ouachita Baptist. The Rangers defeated the Tigers by a score of 75-69. The Rangers, at this point in time, had won 7 games in a row, and this streak has propelled the Rangers to the top of the GAC standings. Now, the Rangers had a huge performance. This was, as I mentioned a moment ago, the 7th straight win. That's the longest streak the Rangers have had this season. And getting that win, it was done in a kind of a weirder way than usual. And Malik Parsons having a big day with 21 points, there's nothing unusual about that. But the main guy I think that helped the Rangers was Anthony Jones. Normally, you think of him more of as a defensive guy, not a whole lot in points, but able to do everything else, whether it be blocks, steals, rebounds, whatever you need him to do. He's kind of one of those glue guys you use on your starting lineup. But he had 18 points, and that's something you do not see a whole lot of. You usually do not get a whole lot of production out of him, and that he's more of a everything else. But when he's able to have a good night, combined with everyone else on the starting 5, the Rangers can be a really deep team. It's one of those things that, is unbelievable to me. Northwestern they have not played, I don't think, their best basketball yet, and, that's kind of more coach speak for you. You'll always hear coaches say, we haven't played our basketball yet, and you can beat someone by 30 and they'll still say that. That's just how that works. But I truly believe if this Northwestern team starts playing their best basketball, they can be a legitimate threat, not only in the GAC, but they may be able to make some noise in the NCAA tournament as well. But the other thing I want to mention here is a story from the RideRangersRide.com. Northwestern wins their 7th straight completing season sweep over Tigers by Andrew Santangelo. That article goes more into detail about what the Rangers were able to do, how they were able to win the game. It was a back-and-forth game most of the first half. They were able to pull away eventually in the second half. Ouachita Baptist would come back. They'd make the game close again. And, it was just a really fun game to listen to here in Alva on Thursday. But getting into Saturday, the Rangers continued to stay in Arkadelphia as they took on Henderson State, and they would ultimately lose this game 72-69 to the Reddies on a buzzer beater. Larry White had a big game there. He had 17 points. Anthony Jones having 13. So, once again, Anthony Jones playing well on the road, which you like to see. But the other thing that kind of stood out to me was this was a game Northwestern had a good opportunity to win. This is a quote that kind of goes with it from Vinay Patel, the head coach of the Rangers. "We want to be the best defense in the league. As a coach, I pride myself on that end of the floor, and our guys have bought into that system." And I truly believe Northwestern can have an extremely good defense, but the way that this game ended against the Reddies, losing on a game-winning 3, that just is going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. But as we move over here to kind of another thing I wanted to talk about as we switch cameras, we'll switch ideas as well. The Rangers are going to have some giant games coming up here when they get home. They are playing tonight, actually, in fact. They're taking on Southwestern. That was a game rescheduled from a few weeks ago. But they also are going to have Arkansas Tech and Harding coming into town. Arkansas Tech on Thursday night, Harding on Saturday night. Now, there's a possibility that the Arkansas Tech game, we're already looking at the possibility of that one being canceled or postponed again due to another incoming winter storm. How many times have we said that on this show this year? More than once. It's a little odd. But the last time that the Rangers took on the Wonder Boys, that name is always a fun name to say. I just have to say that one as many times as I can. Is 83-67 Northwestern getting the win. And the last time that the Rangers played Harding, it was a fantastic game, an 83-80 win by Northwestern. They were able to score 5 points in the final minute. Source that goes with that one, according to a story titled Rangers Close Game on a 5-0 run to beat Harding on the road by Andrew Santangelo of RideRangersRide.com. Kind of details more of the game there, the 5-0 run. I mean, you don't think of that as that big of a deal, but in the closing minute of a game, that is a huge deal. Now, the Rangers are on the right track still. They're 4th place in the GAC, 2 games behind Oklahoma Baptist. They are 1 win away from clinching the conference tournament. They're the 4th seed right now. If they won, they would get another rematch with Henderson State, who they just played. This is a team that's continuing to be on the right track. And if everything goes well, they have a shot still to get the number 1 seed in the GAC. And that would be huge. But if you like what you've listened to so far, keep on tuning in. Connor will be here momentarily with us. But if you like what you've seen so far, give us a follow here on Twitch. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Just search for NWTV7. And we'll be there. Once again, that is NWTV7. Now we get on with the rest of our show. So as we kind of turn things over here back to our more normal programming, as I welcome Connor into the show. Connor, as you know, there's a certain thing that happened Sunday. There's a certain game that happened that a lot of people probably watched.
What certain game was that?
I don't know. This thing they call a superb owl. I don't know what that is. I don't know. It involves some team called the Bungles and the St. Louis Rams. St. Louis Rams, I think.
I don't think St. Louis has an NFL team anymore.
I mean,
I don't know where they went.
I don't know. Maybe the ghost of Kurt Warner's still there. Maybe I don't know.
Oh no, it's still there. Just wondering, like, why did the team leave?
I mean, you never know. But we are, of course, talking about the Super Bowl. The Rams playing the Bengals. Huge game there. And the Rams able to get the job done. Kind of something we both did not think would happen. We both picked Cincinnati to win. Yep. And for 99% of the game, it felt like that was a real possibility. The Bengals have the lead until the final 2 minutes of the game. But that's when Matt Stafford and company were able to pull it off.
Yeah, there was some bad, I think, actually, in regards to when it came to penalties, I don't get why all of a sudden, right at the end, they started throwing all kinds of penalties. It made no sense to me whatsoever because it's like you let them play the game. You let Higgins get away with a blatant offense pass interference early in the second half, while all of a sudden you're now calling some of them. Like there was an egregious holding call, I think, on one of the linebackers for Cincy, just barely touched the jersey, and they called a hold, which I'm like, unless he was egregiously pulling him back, which he wasn't. He was with him the whole time, and they made a great stop that would have made 4th down. Instead, it created a 1st and goal, restarted the downs, and then you had another pass interference on Cincinnati. Actually, you had two that offset, and then you had another one on Cincinnati, and then Eli Apple forgetting how to play defense and letting Cooper Kupp get the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, lots of things as we kind of go through the scoring summary. Game starts off conveniently for the Rams with, I mean, you get a decent first drive. It felt like you had an opportunity to get something going. You punt the ball away. Cincinnati gets the ball. They do the exact same thing. They're bold enough to go for it. Defense stands up. And once again, Matt Stafford, Odell Beckham Jr., something we saw a lot of the second half of this season. And OBJ getting the first touchdown of the Super Bowl. A lot of people thought that was going to happen. The amount of bets I saw on who was going to score the first touchdown in the Super Bowl was at an all-time high.
Yeah, I think it was like Odell. I was like, if anyone's going to score first, out of any player, it would be Odell Beckham.
Yeah, then the Bengals are able to answer with Evan McPherson getting a 29-yard field goal later in the first quarter. The Rams once again striking again. Cooper Kupp getting an 11-yard pass from Matt Stafford, 13-3. The Rams not able to get the PAT, though. You get a bad snap, bad hold, and it turns into a technically failed 2-point conversion attempt.
Yep.
The Bengals able to march 7 minutes down the field in retaliation, and I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. Different Joe throwing the first TD pass of the game for the Bengals. Joe Mixon showing off the arm. QB3 or 2. I don't even know who the Bengals backup is.
No one does.
No one does. It might have been Joe Mixon for all we know. But he finds T. Higgins for a 6-yard TD pass, 13-10, Bengals lead. And then we get to the second half, And it's T. Higgins gets another big play, this time from Joe Burrow, and starting the second half off right, Burrow finds Higgins deep, launches it to him. Higgins able to catch it, run down the field. Bengals have the 17-13 lead.
And refs obviously missing that blatant offensive pass interference.
Yeah, and the face mask and about everything under the sun on that play.
But let's be real. Me and you went, oh, my God, here we go.
Yeah, we were both. I mean, it was an exciting play nonetheless.
Yeah, we're like, oh, he passed interference to him? Oh, anyways. So we basically just moved on.
It was one of those where you don't think, and then you see the replay like, oh. Anyway. And then right after that, the Rams turn the ball over. Not really Matt Stafford's fault on the interception, I think. That's more of you got to make that play if you're the receiver. But Bengals get the big interception. I think the most critical moment looking at this in hindsight, the Bengals have the ball right where they need it to be, and they get held to a field goal.
Yep.
They were not able to capitalize. They couldn't make it a two-possession game, and it's 20-13 with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter.
As much as some people probably wouldn't really think much about it, I feel like the Rams defense, after that turnover, able to get to hold into a field goal, that momentum started slowly spinning back towards the Rams. And because right after that, the Bengals couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals pretty much get locked down for most of the remainder of the game. Rams are able to capitalize. Matt Gay hits a 41-yard field goal, 20-16, and we pretty much enter a stalemate for the rest of the third quarter. We get into the fourth. You kept waiting for the big moment to happen. You kept feeling like someone's going to do something.
Yep.
Something's going to happen. And finally, at the end of the game, the Rams get the ball. We are going to score. And Matt Stafford hits Cooper Kupp, 1 yard, 23-20. Rams get the lead. Defense plays well, and they hold on to win the Super Bowl and win at home.
Yeah.
So home team's now 2-0 in the Super Bowl.
And now
True home field advantage.
And now it makes it 7 years in a row that the team who lost the coin toss has won the Super Bowl.
I think 8 years in a row even now. It's a wild stat for sure though.
One interesting one.
I mean,
obviously Burrow had a great game overall. Had a great game, and Stafford played for the most part good. Besides his first interception was like, "What are you doing?" Then the other one, not really his fault, but both quarterbacks have nothing to be ashamed of in regards to how they played. Obviously, Burrow wishing they could have done better, but the problem is when your offensive line has a 14% pass rate success when it comes to pass blocking, they were not protecting him most of that game.
No,
they were very bad.
I mean, it was 7 sacks, which is tied for the most all time, tied with Roger Staubach getting sacked 7 times. All the way back in Super Bowl 10, I believe.
Yep.
And I mean, the Bengals just could not really – I mean, they were going to make this a game where they were going to have to throw the ball. They were able to run the ball with success, though, when they wanted to, which is something I don't know if a lot of people wanted to call that a surprise or not.
Just 15 carries for 72 yards. I mean, right there shows they probably should have handed the ball a little more off to Mixon because they couldn't really stop him most of the time.
Well, this is the thing they did against Kansas City that I kind of thought they should have done more of against the Rams. Is those quick little screen passes we saw that they were able to beat Kansas City with.
Yeah,
there really wasn't a whole lot of that.
Just give it to I would have just done exactly that. Give it to Mixon, and then he'll just take off with it.
Yeah, I mean you have a few more weapons you could go to, so you might as well utilize them. But the Rams, talking about run game, just nothing the entire game. Cam Akers, 13 carries, 21 yards.
And Sony Michel couldn't do anything. And pretty much any running back that was back there got stuffed. That run defense for Cincinnati was spot on.
Yeah, it was one of those where it's just like, no, it's not happening. And so, I mean, the main takeaway I think from this is that we've learned several things from this. Number one, Cincinnati was really good.
Yeah,
we've already learned that. This just kind of further cemented it. And then they went last year from being a 4-win team to a minute 20 away from winning the Super Bowl.
Yep. And now what they need to be doing is for this next draft, look for some offensive line.
Well, yeah, that's the main thing. They were able to risk it. They went for playmakers. It paid off, especially getting Jamar Chase. But now you've got to look at some O-line. You absolutely have to.
you pick some up in the draft and possibly get some in free agency because the current guys you have now, I think maybe you probably only keep a couple of them, but the rest need to go. Mainly that starting group. And that starting group. It's like you got to revamp that offensive line with new talent. Otherwise, you're going to be in the same situation, if not even worse, because basically right now you're basically going to get Joe Burrow killed.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel if his line does not improve, he probably won't even last maybe a few more years in the league before he gets a very severe injury.
Well, I mean, we saw that happen during the game itself. It looked like Burrow got injured extremely badly.
Yeah.
Thankfully, he was able to get back out there and continue to play, but you could tell it's going to be one of those interesting things. I mean, Aaron Donald was able to just walk through the line at times. It felt like whenever he wanted to make a big play, he could.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this also shows that the kind of NBA style model of we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. We're going to get all these stars together for 1 or 2, maybe 3-year window of winning a title will work. We finally proved that it will work. There's success doing this. The Rams are either geniuses or have way too much money, maybe a combination of both. I mean, we've seen this model for forever in sports, and it's finally made its way to the NFL officially. Mm-hmm. And I think it would not surprise me if you see more teams start to do this. Even it really would not surprise me if you see, a team with a lot of money or a lot of cap space one year. Okay, we're going to go out and sign the best quarterback we can. We're going to make a few trades, get some good wide receivers, get some good defensive players, see what we can do.
Yeah, you can do well. Obviously, it showed that it worked with the Rams. The problem is they've been doing the same exact style for the last half decade, and obviously it finally paid off. But here's the problem: you basically sacrifice your future. Basically, we're not going to be back we won't be back here for quite a while.
But I think you take that though. If you tell me, we're going to have 3 years of being good, but we're going to win a Super Bowl and then be terrible for 8 years.
You're not guaranteed a Super Bowl. That's the problem with this. With this, obviously, getting Stafford for trading Goff for Stafford, obviously, very much worked out. Obviously, because Goff was not the guy you needed.
I know, and I think that's the thing that works though in this model. That's what we saw the Rams do. Okay, you go to the Super Bowl, you lose, you trade your quarterback, you get someone better in Stafford, and you're able to kind of keep retooling until you finally win.
But once again, this doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work, but I think it can. It showed it can. I think we'll see more teams do it often.
Well, if they didn't get it, thing is obviously with how this whole year went with the Rams, yes, great record, obviously won Super Bowl, but it's like now even if you get all these pieces, something can go horribly wrong at any moment. And
yeah, that is true.
So, yeah, does it work going all in like this? It can, but it's not. I don't think it's the most smartest strategy because you don't want to sacrifice your future because hey, you want to try to win more Super Bowls or at least be more successful down the road because if the Rams don't, if it's all downhill from here for the Rams for at least the next few seasons, they're kind of screwed.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it would still be a win for them because they got that one Super Bowl. You may not think of it like that, but even just that 1-6, you take that.
Well, I'm already looking toward the future already. It's like, yeah, congratulations, you won your Super Bowl. I'm not disagreeing with you on that it worked or anything like that, but it's like the whole key goal is to win as many as you can. Not win one and then basically have to blow everything up.
Yeah, I think it's something that I could see more teams that aren't traditionally good doing it.
But you have to get. It mainly comes down to management making the right moves.
It does,
and obviously, LA had a lot. The Rams had a lot of money they could spend, but obviously, right now they're basically put themselves in a really bad hole. Especially, you have to cut players next year to even make it under the cap, if even that.
Yeah, and then it will be interesting to see. And as we move on to the I kind of want to use this as a segue to talk about, with this strategy. It did work for a certain other team, Detroit, for the first time. They got the 32nd pick Ladies and gentlemen, the Lions did it. They got the 32nd pick for the first time. And that brings me into the NFL draft, which will be, only a month and a half away. It feels like a month and a half, maybe 2. We're getting closer and closer every single day. Kind of looking at some of the ranked players here, what we got our draft grades and stuff going, looking at our big board. Number 1 player right now ranked is Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end out of Michigan. Currently rated 94 overall if you go by ESPN's insider boards. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to kind of see, where do teams go? Where do we go from here? You have Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive end there, Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. In regards to, obviously, with some of these, if you're looking at defensive players, this is the draft grab those guys.
Yeah, this is a good draft for them.
Obviously, you got to figure out where certain ones need to go. It's like, in regards to, obviously, you have an offensive line ranked number 2 right behind Hutchinson.
Yeah, you've got some offensive lines in there.
I'm actually really curious where he'll actually end up going because there's not as many teams that are looking for an offensive lineman.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot this year. At least it doesn't feel like it. You're going to see a lot more of the skill positions, and also this is the main thing I want to talk about also in this is a bad year for quarterbacks in the draft.
You have Kenny Pickett, and that's pretty much
you
it.
have Kenny Pickett, you have that's a good question.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it.
I'm honestly trying to think of Malik Willis. You have Malik Willis, you have Sam Howell.
They do have in regards to top, you have Matt Corral.
Yeah, Matt Corral out of Ole Miss.
And Malik Willis.
Yeah, Malik Willis there. Those are really your 4 guys. Olave out of Ohio State's a good skill player to go get, a good receiver. Garrett Wilson, Drake London out of USC. There are not a whole lot of offensive guys this year. It's a lot of defense or offensive linemen.
So, I would say if you're looking for defense, which a lot of teams are currently looking for, this is your draft.
Yeah, this is the one for you. So it will be interesting to see some of the moves that are made. That always happens. It's the NFL draft for a reason. You'll get something crazy that'll happen.
Well, I will say Detroit isn't necessarily going to be looking for a new quarterback because Goff actually showed he can still play well. The issue is the whole team was in dysfunction most of that year. But at least they actually showed, hey, we can actually win with this group.
Yeah, they showed they are capable of doing something.
Though, let's be real, and if they didn't lose so many heartbreaking games, they actually could have been around 500.
They easily could have been. It was one of those things, and, it's every year with Detroit. This is not one special thing, but it's just watching them lose as many one-possession games as possible. I've seen that happen before. It is degrading just in general. When that is your entire sports existence, I just feel bad for them. That's all I can say.
It's unless you're rival divisions with them, I think everyone's I don't want to. It's we all feel bad for you.
Yeah, unless
I think the only group.
Yeah, unless you're the Packers or Vikings or Bears.
I think if you're the Vikings, you don't feel bad for them. If you're Chicago, you don't feel bad for them. If you're the Packers, it's I kind of feel sorry for you, but not really.
Yeah, I don't think that it's one of those we feel sorry for you. Psych! We do not care. Go 0-17.
And, I would say the NFC North will be probably the weakest division because all the teams are going to be missing. Packers are going to lose a lot of talent, possibly losing Aaron Rodgers in the process. Obviously, Chicago's going to Chicago. Vikings going to Viking. And then Detroit's just going to Detroit.
Yeah, it will be interesting as we mosey our way on over to the NBA, where things have been a little weird. They always are around this time. We're getting towards the All-Star break. They did announce today that on TBS they will have a Manning cast style version of the game where you can have the Inside the NBA crew commentating the game instead. Thank you for giving me this. I just want to see 3 hours of Chuck and Shaq yelling at each other instead of actually commentating the game while Ernie Johnson's I'm here.
They don't. It's like on NBA, inside the NBA. Do you think they actually analyze games? No, they just yell at each other.
They do for 5 minutes, and then they
just
gotta
yell at each other.
And then they gotta talk about the dumbest thing possible, which is why I love it so much. I mean, you hear fun stories you would never hear in a million years any other time. You get the weirdest analysis. Draymond Green will also be there. He pretty much is waiting in the wings of whoever retires first on that show. Draymond Green will join him. I think that's a good fit for inside the NBA.
Oh, yeah, Draymond's going to fit right in.
I mean, he has the personality, too. He has the experience, too.
I think more than likely what will happen, he'll probably end up replacing Charles Barkley.
More than likely.
Because Barkley did, I think a couple of years ago, said he was going to retire in a few years.
Yeah, more than likely he will be the guy. But as we look here at the NBA, just kind of quick rundown of everything. The East, Miami is the number 1 team right now in the East. Chicago at 2, Cleveland at 3, Philadelphia 4, Milwaukee 5, Boston 6. We move into the 4 play-in teams. Toronto at 7, Brooklyn at 8, Charlotte at 9, and Atlanta at 10. Now, Brooklyn is the big story. They lost 11 games in a row. I mean, it was a detrimental time to be a Nets fan. And last night, they took on the Wizards, and it was a big game. Okay, never mind. They were showing me highlights of something else. They did not play the Wizards. Thank you for that, ESPN. They played the Kings. They beat the Kings. Everyone beats the Kings, except for, teams that lose to the Kings. Couldn't be me. That's all I'm saying. I could beat the Kings. Anyone could beat the Kings. A 5-year-old could beat the Kings.
Yeah.
That's just how the Kings are. I don't mean to diss them that much, but
you're that bad.
This is the team that will do the dumbest thing possible in every single situation. But Charlotte at 9, Atlanta at 10, they're still trying to get their footing and break even or just a little bit over 500. And we move to the 5 teams that are currently not in anything. The Wizards, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Magic, and the Pistons, who are all sitting on the outside looking in. As we move over to the West, it's Phoenix on top, Warriors in the 2 spot, Memphis at 3, Utah 4, Dallas 5, Denver 6, Minnesota 7, LA 8, the Clippers that is, the Lakers at 9, and the Trailblazers at 10. The Pelicans are just outside, looking in, half a game behind the Trailblazers. The Spurs then below them, then the Kings, the Thunder, and the Rockets. So as we kind of look here at the map of everything going on, there are a few teams you can tell are clearly tanking. You had the big upset last night where the Thunder beat the Knicks, and then you saw a bunch of New York fans chanting that they need to fire Tom Thibodeau, head coach of the Knicks. I don't know if that's more just a Knicks fans overreacting to things.
When do they not overreact about things?
But, I mean, the Knicks have had a lot of serious concerns this year. This team was the 4th seed in the East last year. They're 25-33 this year. Julius Randle is nowhere near the same player he was last season. He's regressed a lot from his all-star-like season. So, I mean, it's a problem out there for them. The team I am kind of intrigued, though, the most by in terms of where they can be, though, I think is probably, oh, man, who do we want to pick on? Not pick on, but, I mean, Philadelphia is going to be one of the easy ones to choose because of the James Harden trade. But the team that honestly gives me the most probably intrigue, I would say, is probably if you think about on the West, New Orleans, I think. New Orleans is a team that you made the C.J. McCollum trade. You have players now. You have a legitimate push now to be a,
to at least push your way into the playing games.
I mean, the Pelicans are going to, you're half a game out of Portland. You're 3 games away from the Lakers, who are so topsy-turvy, it feels like. You have the Clippers in the 8th spot, who are 5 games away. They're not going to have Kawhi Leonard pretty much at all this year. The Paul George injury was worse than we thought. It's still lingering.
Jesus, good Lord.
Yeah, so, I mean, New Orleans has a shot to get in the play-ins and be a force,
Not going to lie, I'm surprised that the Clippers are somehow managed to stay where they're at so far.
I mean, Reggie Jackson has done a lot of work to keep that team afloat. It's not just him, of course. But, I mean, Reggie Jackson's done a lot out there. He's been kind of the main guy that's taken over. He's continuing to play great basketball. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the trades. Obviously, the main one, James Harden going to Philadelphia, Ben Simmons going to Brooklyn, with a few others. I think that is obviously the biggest trade.
It's the biggest trade of the year, mainly because of all the controversy around, and also things going around with Harden things not going well in Brooklyn between Harden, KD, and other things going around. So basically, obviously, for Philly, they got a win on this one because they got rid of Simmons and they got an actual shooter in Harden. But obviously, if you're the Nets, well, you got to hope Simmons will actually play very aggressive and be a threat in the paint. Otherwise, it's going to be your season's pretty much going to be forfeit at this point.
Yeah, and I think that the trade can work for both sides. Obviously, for Philadelphia, it's a lot easier to make the point because you add James Harden to a team already with Joel Embiid on and Tobias Harris and others. But the only thing with James Harden that is kind of a detriment, I will say, is first of all, you're in win now mode. Yep. You have to win either this year or next year. Yep. That's the goal because then his contract's up. You don't know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
The other thing is Harden loves his style of basketball, which is the isolation style, where he's able to kind of control everything. And you can do that when James Harden is the guy. We've seen him do it before, but it drives a wedge between people. We saw him drive a wedge with Dwight Howard. We saw him drive a wedge with Chris Paul. We've seen him do it with Kevin Durant now in Brooklyn, where from what I've heard, at least from what we've seen reported, they were not on the best of terms towards the end. Steve Nash wanted more of a free-flowing style offense. There were times where Harden would get upset when plays were called specifically for Durant. They both wanted to be the guy. And, I mean,
I'm sorry, but not Durant, but Harden should have realized when going to this team he was not going to be the main guy. This was a team that was initially formed with in regards to Kyrie and KD, and pretty much a lot of this was going to go through mainly those guys.
And that's what James Harden said. He said the goal was he wanted to join Philadelphia. He did not want to go to Brooklyn.
Oh, that is bull.
He just wanted to – he just got sent there because – the Rockets and Sixers were not on good terms at the time, especially when your general manager leaves and the way he left, which made some people at Houston mad. So they were not going to trade Harden to Philadelphia. But that's what came out today.
I'm sorry, but I think that's a load of crap.
But anyway, that's what happened. We will see these two teams play each other, Philadelphia and Brooklyn, March 10th. Brooklyn comes to Philadelphia. That's going to be a fun game. I think Ben Simmons will play. I would love to see him. I would not be surprised if he didn't, though. He said earlier today he's ready for that game. He will be there for, his goal is to be ready before that point. So if that game does happen, like I think, well, first of all, that's going to be must-watch TV.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be one of the most fun, energetic games to watch of the year.
Oh, most definitely, because obviously Philly fans get a chance to properly boo
They get a chance to let all their frustration out that they've had for the past year, basically, at this point.
Yep.
As we move on over to the NHL for a moment, not a whole lot's changed. Still coming back from the All-Star break there. Looking over at the Eastern Conference right now in the Atlantic Division, it's still Florida at the top with 69 points. Tampa Bay right behind them, though, with 68. And Toronto still hanging in there, just a few points away. They're in the 3 spot with 65. You look at the Metro Division, it's the Pens still on top with 68 points. Carolina just 1 behind them with 67, and the Rangers with 64. So, I mean, the East is still extremely tight. Didn't think anything was going to 100% change there. Mm-hmm. As we move down to the wild card spots, Washington at 61, Boston at 57, Detroit still 7 points away from either of them with 50, and then you move on Columbus, New York Islanders, the Devils, the Sens, the Sabres, the Flyers, and the Canadiens at the bottom. They recently changed head coaches. It'll be intriguing to see. Montreal, obviously, I don't think comes back this year, but next year, could be a big year for the Canadiens if they play their cards right.
If they get better talent.
And moving on over to the West, the team to beat in all of the NHL when you look at points-wise, once again, it's the Avs. It's Colorado. Once again, 72 points, leading the entire NHL. Minnesota in the 2 spot, though, in the Central with 63. Nashville with 60. We move over to the Pacific Division. It's 59 points to Vegas, the division leader there. Calgary with 58, and the LA Kings with 55. You look at the wild card spot, there's St. Louis, currently with 59 points in the first wild card spot. Anaheim with 55. And the race for the wild card in the West is going to be something to see. Because when you think about it, Anaheim has 55, Edmonton right now is 53. Dallas with 52. Vancouver with 50. You have 4 teams within 5 points of each other for that final wild card spot. That is going to be a race to the end.
Oh, most definitely.
And, I mean, it'll be fun. All of these teams are playing pretty decent right now. Dallas and Edmonton are on fire. They've both won 7 of their last 10. Vancouver and Anaheim kind of treading water right now around 500. So it's going to be a battle. It is going to be a battle. And you can't count Winnipeg or San Jose out either. They each have 48 points. Chicago, you can kind of start to count out a little bit with 43. Seattle with 36. You're just happy to be here. It's one of your franchise.
Hey, at least you're not in last place.
And Arizona is 28. The Coyotes, who do not even have their own arena anymore. I don't know. That was something we talked about yesterday, Andrew and I did, where Arizona is going to move to Arizona State's arena for 3 years. They're going to build a facility over there with plans to build a new arena by 2025 for that season. So Arizona, I mean, attendance-wise, they're not doing the best. They're only averaging 11,000 in their venue that seats 17,000. They've constantly had trouble. There have been rumors swirling for a long time. What are they going to do? They were coming to an ending on their lease with the arena in the city of Glendale itself. No one knew what in the world was going to happen out there. They were able to come to somewhat of an agreement, but how long is this going to last? Do you move the team? There have been people strongly wanting a return to the Quebec Nordiques. There have been people who've talked about, this is the way the Thrashers went at the end before they got moved. I mean, there's so many possibilities here.
I really don't know what you actually do with the Coyotes because ever since they've been in Arizona, they haven't been that very good. And obviously, things seem to be not working out so well in Arizona in regards to, obviously, they lost their arena in Glendale. So it's like, well, what do you do? Do you just leave? Do you leave, or do you just stick it out and just stay in Arizona, even though no one's really coming to watch you play, and you're obviously not having the best relationship with the state? So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's one where I don't really know what you do. I mean, I can think of, you could move the team easily. There are places that would take you with open arms that have been longing for their teams to come back.
Come to Oklahoma.
You could also come to Oklahoma City. I would appreciate that. I don't think that would be the move, though.
No, it wouldn't, but I would take it because
it's
we would support the team.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe. Depends. You can kind of look at the Thunder in the same way where, okay, now they're not as good and it starts to go down just a little bit. But it would be intriguing to see what would happen. Obviously, I would like to see, hockey in the desert works. We see that it works with Vegas. This isn't just a teams don't work in that area type of thing.
Well, one thing that helped with Vegas is that
being good instantly.
Good out the get-go because somehow they made all these players that weren't really good on other teams all of a sudden got good.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Arizona, I would love to see them do well. It's not a sports thing because the Suns get support, the Cardinals get support, the Diamondbacks get support when they're good. I think it's just a problem of Arizona's never really been a good team, and that's
bad ownership and bad management.
That's the main problem for them is they've just never been good.
If they could at least be decent, people would.
They were decent last year. This wasn't a problem last year. They were, 5th in their division. They were in the wild card hunt the entire year.
They still struggled to really get any attendance.
Yeah, which I think it's one of those when you get bad enough for so long, people just expect you to be bad and nothing ever changes.
So when you're actually good for once, people still don't pay attention.
Yeah, it usually takes like a big motivating change to get something to happen. But speaking of change, we had a little bit of change in college basketball. We did get, games Monday. And when you get games Monday in February, you get Joe Lenardi Bracketology Tuesday. And that's exactly what we got here. Joey Brackets, once again, giving us his latest predictions. And the bubble continues to get tighter and tighter, as it always does at this point in the year. The last 4 buys, according to Joe Lenardi, Wake Forest, North Carolina, San Francisco, and Oklahoma. The last 4 in, Iowa State, Creighton, BYU, and Oregon. So, teams riding the edge here. And you look at the first 4 out, Memphis, who got a giant win Saturday against Houston, Michigan, who's been playing better, San Diego State, and Florida. You look at the next 4 out after that. Rutgers, who is catching fire right now. They got a big upset over Wisconsin. They've beaten 3 top 15 teams in a row. Kansas State continuing to play better. They beat West Virginia last night. Virginia Tech, they're in the next 4 out. They beat Virginia last night. And Belmont. Belmont is just always here. They're either going to win their conference or they're going to find a way to get near the tournament. That just says the consistency and the tradition that the Bruins have. So we look at the 68-team bracket. Not a whole lot changing in terms of your 1 seeds. Everything pretty much staying the same except Kentucky joining the 1s. Gonzaga, Auburn, Kentucky, and Arizona.
Pretty much it's just like a few spots throughout the bracket where stuff has changed.
Yeah, you look at your 2s, Duke, Kansas, Baylor, and now Purdue dropping down to the 2 seed. They switched with Kentucky. But I think it'll be a fun bracket. There are a lot of games that are still intriguing. Your first 4, Longwood, Norfolk State, Southern versus New Orleans. How about a battle of Louisiana right there? Southern versus Baton Rouge versus New Orleans itself. Creighton and Oregon would be a fun battle for the 12 seed. And Iowa State, BYU, 2 teams that have been slumping. Someone's got to win that game.
Yep. And obviously one is a future Big 12 member. So
yeah, you get a Big 12 preview, yeah. So that'll be interesting. Right now, you look at it, the Big 12 with 7 teams in, the Big 10 with 7 teams in, and the Big East with 7 teams in.
No one's surprised that the Big East has 7.
Yeah, the Big East, we got a huge matchup tonight. I do want to talk about a little bit at 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Number 10, Villanova. Number 8, Providence. Only the second time ever in Friar basketball history that Providence is playing a top 10 game at home. This is a giant one at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Oklahoma, Texas already getting underway. Texas up 8-7, 14:32 to go in the first. That one on ESPN2. Duke up 10-8 on Wake, 15-12 to go in the first half on ESPN. And on the Big Ten Network right now, Penn State just took the lead on Michigan State, 23-22, minute and a half to go until halftime there. So as we move on score-wise, kind of over to what happened last night, talking a little bit about Kansas, looking like Kansas. That's just, they get in their rhythm usually in late mid-February.
Yeah, that was depressing watching that.
Yeah, so they beat Oklahoma State 76-62 as we continue around the Big 12. Mentioned it a moment ago. Kansas State, a 78-73 win over West Virginia. And the Wildcats, they're a scrappy bunch. They're going to do this to you. They're not afraid to get into a dog fight with you, or a cat fight, I guess you could say. They're not afraid to go toe-to-toe with you. They do not care how good you are. That is how all Bruce Weber teams are. And K-State fans, it drives them insane. They will play to their competition, whether they be the number 1 team in the country or a D3 school. They're going to play to their competition. It drives them insane. It drives me insane every time Oklahoma plays them, but that's still something the Sooners will have to do later in the year. And then as we get to kind of some of the other games here, not a whole lot on Monday night, which is sad because Monday night used to be one of the nights for basketball.
Yep.
Creighton getting a big 88-77 win over Georgetown. One game I do want to mention, though, because we don't get a whole lot of these anymore. How about Purdue-Fort Wayne in triple overtime beating Cleveland State 102-98, 200 combined points. You never see that in basketball. Now, that's college basketball.
That's college basketball right there.
Jalen Pipkins with 27. That's college basketball. That's all I could say. When I think of mid-major basketball, that's the type of game I want to see. Just crazy, insane, whatever you can give me, I'll take it. As we look tonight, obviously we mentioned some of the games going on already. We mentioned Villanova, Providence. Big games later tonight. Ohio State takes on Minnesota at 7:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. Buckeyes ranked 18th in the country trying to get a win at home. The big one tonight, however, at 8 o'clock on ESPN, number 4 Kentucky, number 16 Tennessee. Huge game in the SEC, huge game nationally. Vols try to get a big win at home. Will be interesting to see how that one breaks down.
Last time Tennessee played Kentucky, Kentucky blew them out.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if the Cats can do it again. As we move on, not a whole lot on Wednesday nights. That's kind of become, that's more of an NBA night if you ask me personally. Thursday night, kind of the same thing. That's more of an NBA night in general. As we move and look ahead to Saturday's games, I'm just going to skip Friday in general. I want to mention this one, 11:30 a.m. Saturday on ABC. You're going to want to watch this. Texas Tech taking on Texas. Now you're thinking, okay, I remember when Chris Beard came back to Lubbock. That was a fun game. Texas has sold this game out against Texas Tech. They have responded. And by responding, I mean Texas Tech fans not hacked, but someone leaked the code to this game to Texas Tech fans. There's expected to be more Texas Tech fans in Austin than Texas fans.
That's
for this game.
Okay, that's a bit depressing if you're Texas.
Texas Tech fans are planning to travel, whether they be from Houston, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Lubbock itself, already live in Austin. There will be a lot of red and black at this state. There'll be a lot of red and black at the Frank Irwin Center. It's going to be a fun game. Alabama, Kentucky at noon on CBS will be another fun one. Top 25 matchup at Rupp Arena. TCU Baylor, just always a fun rivalry in general. 11 a.m. game Saturday. Illinois, Michigan State, big top 20 matchup there in East Lansing. Xavier taking on UConn, 11 a.m. on Fox. We haven't even gotten out of the noon games yet, and just look at all those good games at the beginning of the day.
That's just a stacked morning for games.
Yeah, then you get to 1 o'clock, number 2, Auburn taking on Florida, big game there on ESPN. Moving to our two teams in Oklahoma. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, 1 o'clock ESPNU. Oklahoma at Iowa State, 1 o'clock on ESPN+. As we kind of scroll down the line, you see the games get kind of dispersed throughout the day. I mean, you get that big build-up at the beginning of the day, and then it kind of dies out as momentum goes on.
Oh, Wyoming actually being ranked in basketball.
Yeah, Wyoming's ranked 22. They're really good this year.
Actually surprising.
Yeah, 3 o'clock on ESPN. Tennessee taking on Arkansas, 16 versus 23. Bud Walton Arena probably going to be shaking again. Tickets are as low as, $167. Safe to say Arkansas fans like their basketball. And then as we move on later in the day, 4 o'clock on Fox, big old school Big East game. Georgetown taking on Villanova. And there at the Finneran Pavilion, not in Wells Fargo, at the Finneran Pavilion. And as we move on kind of throughout the night, the final big one, I guess we should mention, because Florida State Duke's at 5 on ESPN. That's not really as big of a game as it would have been a few weeks ago. 7 o'clock, ESPN, Kansas at West Virginia. Kansas can never win at this place. Kansas does not win in Morgantown a lot. Will be interesting to see. I think if there's going to be a year for it to happen, it'll be this year.
Yeah.
The Jayhawks are way better than West Virginia. West Virginia's just young and inexperienced this year.
Their talent gap is pretty wide.
And then if you want to watch some fun, you got the Bill Walton game. I mean, you got Oregon and Arizona. Oregon, a bubble team trying to stay alive. They have to play the number 3 team in the country, Arizona. That'll be a fun one out there in Tucson.
That's going to be some Pac-12 after dark.
That will be some Pac-12 after dark. Many weird things will happen in that game. That is how that works. And will always work, because why not?
I will say a bit of an update on the Northwestern-Southwestern game. Southwestern Bulldogs up 48-22.
That's kind of
what we didn't want it to happen, but we kind of expected the Southwestern girls to be much better, play better this time around, because it's in Weatherford. Also, we just lately, as our track record in regards to how we've been playing isn't necessarily been the best.
It hasn't been the best, especially playing especially when you play away from Alva. That's one of those things that's kind of interesting about our team, is that in Alva, really good, hard to beat. Outside of Alva, it's a whole nother stratosphere.
That's the worst thing with our boys team. We've been better on the road than we have been at home for the most part.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of that goes. But it has been a fun week of sports so far. I did want to talk Olympics a little bit. There hasn't been a whole lot going on, updated since yesterday. I do want to say, though, I'll go in my little spiel I did yesterday, where I cannot wait for the Olympics to come back to the U.S. so I can actually watch these at proper times, because I don't know about you, but I'm not getting up at 3 in the morning to watch something.
No, I am not.
But as we look at a live medal count here, looking at total medals, it is Norway in first. They have 26 total medals. Germany is third total, but second in gold. They have 9 gold medals, but 18 total. Russia has 20 total medals, but only 4 gold medals. So when you try to click on the gold medal count, it's for some reason is separated differently than total medals. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah.
The United States, 17 medals overall, so 4th overall, but 3rd in gold medals with 7. And Norway, of course, with 12. Because, I mean, they're built for this.
Yeah, it's pretty much
their thing.
If you're from pretty much if you deal with snow all the time, this should be your event.
Yeah, I would think so. But also, shout out New Zealand. They're the furthest from north I can think of when I think of Winter Olympics. New Zealand is not the team. Neither is South Korea or Australia, actually. But you know what? They're getting there.
The fact they're doing better than Finland is astonishing.
Poor Finland, man. I mean,
well, I know they're doing better than New Zealand, but the fact that they're losing to some of these teams that don't deal with a lot of snow, it's like you're a Scandinavian country. You should be doing a lot better.
Yeah, it was like I expect you to. This is your time to shine. I expect you to be cleaning up at this, but it's not happening.
Oh, I know a bit off topic. If you're really into chaotic softball, the score right now in the bottom of the 5th with 2 outs, Northwestern up 13-12.
Yeah, that's
softball for you. That's going to be fun. Doing that.
It's what we call D2 softball. Northwestern won the first game today against Newman 13-5. So once again, 13 runs. So interested to see if they can get above that. And with a shootout like that going on, you're going to need it.
Yeah, that just when I saw that when I pulled it up, I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah, so you can watch that game live on NWOSU Rangers currently on YouTube. I hope they fixed it earlier. They did not have a scoreboard on. You might have to have live stats synced up to it. There's no announcer or anything. You might have to kind of do it yourself a little bit. Also, Classic Hits 105.7 providing commentary today of the Lady Rangers and Rangers game in Weatherford. So if you're listening, want to listen to some Northwestern basketball tonight, maybe watch the Northwestern softball, we've got you covered.
That we do.
That we do. But with all that being said, I think there's probably no better place to end it than tonight. I don't think we have a whole lot left to talk about in general. I think we've hit all the bases here. There was not a dig at the baseball strike. I mean, today would have been opening day. We hit all the bases. Rob Manfred did not hit all the bases. He hasn't hit a single one.
Nope. And still think he's by far the worst commissioner of all the 4 major sports.
Of the 4 major sports, he is. That is true. That is true.
It's so baffling how, like, I don't necessarily, like, you can blame the players for some of the stuff, why this lockout's happening, but some of the stuff that they're asking is not the most, like, some stuff is not the most unreasonable, but the owners don't want to do it.
I'll tell you what is unreasonable. Universal designated hitter. Not a fan.
Oh, not a fan. I don't. It's like, make the pitchers hit. Actually get good at hitting pitchers.
Yeah, the other thing I think needs to be taken away, and this is something Andrew and I, again, brought up on our show yesterday, the ghost runner thing is dumb. I don't like that. I understand trying to make the game more exciting for people who don't really care about baseball. But at the same time, it was like, for goodness sakes, no, that's just wrong. You don't give the team that. I mean, I just don't understand it.
It's also one thing with pitchers. It's like, I get it. Pitchers, you want to focus mainly on pitching and not have to worry about hitting. But it's like, how about you actually get good at every aspect of your game including hitting, so that way you're actually better and not be a detriment to your team.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. But that's most sports for you. There's not a whole lot that makes sense ever, really, in general. But
I mean, I don't know I don't think they'll do it, but the TV network should consider showing college baseball games instead. I understand you're not going to get probably as big as viewership as you'd like, but hey, this could boost the sport because, hey, you got college baseball. College baseball is a lot more chaotic than Major League Baseball. Yeah, Major League Baseball, you kind of get an idea of how certain teams operate, which one's better, which ones are terrible. While as college baseball, it's chaotic.
Yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen there. I know the Clearwater Invitational coming up for college softball. ESPN announced their big deal the other day with college softball. I've not seen anything on college baseball yet. I know softball's continuing to take off and kind of rise above college baseball.
Well,
So I don't know if that will factor into decision making. I don't know if they'll just put more NBA stuff on instead. There really is no tell.
I hope they don't. It's like the thing. It's because they've prioritized. What's actually because they've always been doing softball on ESPN. So that was always gonna eventually overtake college baseball because the only time they ever show college baseball is whenever they throw it on ESPN Plus or when the postseason gets here. Otherwise, they don't show games.
Yeah, I was saying unless you're on the SEC or ACC network, you're not going to get a lot of baseball.
And that's a shame because there's so many good baseball games that they could be advertising. Instead, they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. It's
why do that?
It's like it goes a long way to helping out not just the conferences but the sport itself. I get it. Major League Baseball brings you a lot of money because there's not as many teams and you have more fans tuning in on TV. But if you want to help baseball out, you got to start advertising the college level. But the MLB is somehow afraid of competition. I don't get it why they think college baseball would compete with them. It's like they're not a rival league.
I don't know. I think
because this was like years ago. My dad, my dad was a lot younger. Apparently, there was a deal that went on that ESPN initially was going to probably show more college games or whatever, but MLB said they were pulling out if they did, so they didn't go with it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how true. I'm not sure how much truth to that is. I just know that I'm pretty sure that did happen because it makes a lot of sense why college baseball isn't on TV. Mm-hmm. Like the Fox affiliates used to be able to, when Fox was actually doing baseball more, they actually were showing.
Yeah, like I remember usually watching a lot of the Big 12 tournament on the Fox Sports networks as a kid.
But now it's like they don't exist. I know you have to go through the other stuff, but it's like there's just nothing there. It's a real shame because many of the things that have happened over the years, it's like no wonder why baseball has been going down in popularity.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's popular almost everywhere else in the world. I know it's really still popular in Latin America, but still, it's like it could a lot if we actually advertised baseball more, showed it more. It could have gone a long way to building the sport.
It easily could, but I think it's one of those kind of weird generational divides where people started to not grow up with it. And so you kind of saw more and more people not care, and then you have the more diversification of options, especially with the rise of the NBA and the NBA doing the best thing you can do. They promoted their stars and made it kind of a player-first league.
That's the problem with Major League Baseball. They don't.
Yeah.
Their best players. They don't promote their best players.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not focused on baseball in the United States. They're focused on international.
Yeah.
And because the international appeal to baseball is huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, Japan loves baseball. Like, they sell out stadiums almost everywhere.
Yeah, you got the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization.
That's doing
really
much better. And then you just, obviously, Latin America is always going to do well because that's the sport of choice. That's not soccer. Because some of the best players in baseball have been from Latin America. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things could really go a long way to promoting baseball. I mean, whether just be more active on social media, encourage players to be more out there with fans. Because baseball still has a large fan base. The problem is that is trying to be interesting. Because you don't grab people's attention until second halfway through the season. Though you can make the argument that's with any other sport that has a long season. Football, it's your foot's on the gas until
you only get 12 regular season in college and 17 in the NFL. Every game is super important. It's not like baseball where you have 162 games. You can afford to not watch 80 of them and still know what's going on with your team.
Yeah, because all you have to do is just
check your phone,
check your phone, keep up with it, and then put it away.
Yeah,
and same thing can be said with the NHL and the NBA because obviously the NBA has out of all the other two bigger than NHL than baseball, but people still tentatively will have it on as background or at least actually watch it early on, but mostly not really watching every game. But as soon as it hit after the All-Star break, okay, people are starting to watch more.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with baseball and hockey, but but baseball doesn't get that much. It's not as much with baseball, in my opinion, because I don't start. Even me, I don't really start. I'm watching the Royals as best I can for most of the season, but I don't start watching everybody else until like once it hits around August and September.
Yeah, like I'll catch a Cardinals game or two usually in June or July, but like when it's April and May and they're playing, I do not care. I'm sorry. There are more important things going on in the world of sports. You got the NBA playoffs, you got the NHL playoffs. If they honestly started baseball in July and just had it go from July to October as like a little season, that would be probably the best case thing.
Well,
obviously, you cut a lot of stuff out, but
also I will say by doing that, you give players longer time to rest up.
Yeah,
and then second, you'd force teams. Okay, we actually have to try to win. We can't afford to drop any games. We have to win.
Yes, like when they did the COVID thing and it was like 30 games, that was wonderful. Every game was equally important. It was every single game matters. If you lose a game, it is more painful than usual for just fan perspective, where it's just like, okay, we only get a few. We've got to do this. Or I think it was 60 games, but either way.
It was 60 plus.
Yeah, it was 60, but it's one of those like, you need to shorten the season, in my opinion. That's one thing, first of all.
I'd probably cut the season about just over half games.
Like,
no, just under half the games.
Yeah, like we don't need, as much as spring baseball can be fun, I'm not saying it isn't, it's going to get beat out every single time. And you're not going to have interest when, it's in May and there's baseball and I
also
don't
made
care.
the argument with the NBA that the season's way too long.
Yeah, same thing in the NBA and same thing in the NHL. You could cut the games in half at 40, start at Christmas Day, and that'd be perfect. Start Christmas Day, balance it out a bit more, even start after Christmas and after New Year's even.
I mean, technically you're right, during that time you only have the NHL and NBA going, and then baseball's by itself most of the time.
Yeah, baseball gets most of summer to
and
itself.
then football's always going to have the attention. It's never going to get beat out by anything else.
Yeah.
Like you could probably put the NFL regular season when the NBA playoffs start, and the NFL will take a chunk of that viewership. Mm-hmm. That's just how big football is.
Yeah, I mean the NFL's coming off its best ratings in 6 years. It's back in a big way. It never left either.
It never, yeah. It's like, obviously you had viewers that left long ago that came back. Also, it does help when you have arguably the best season just from a football standpoint.
Yes.
That really helps out a lot. So, I'm happy the NFL's going to keep doing well. Hopefully it keeps doing much better. And I want all our major sports to do well, but it is a shame that some just don't get as much love as they should. Yep.
And that is probably the best place to cap it off for tonight. We've still got a whole lot going on, a whole lot of sports on the ESPN Family Network, CBS Sports, all that good stuff going on tonight in the wonderful world of college basketball. But we've gotten you through football. Football season officially over now. We'll still find ways to talk about it because
most definitely there's a lot.
Yeah, it's the off season now. The football season never truly ends. It just goes into hibernation, just for a little bit. Then we go through hockey. We go through basketball. We've gone through baseball even a little bit, and that's really all you need to know. We've gone through the Olympics a little bit as well. We've gone everywhere. So for Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody.